Hey guys, welcome back to a Sacred Vedic Astrology. My name is Samantha and I feel so blessed and truly so lucky to be a professional Vedic sidereal astrologer. So today we have a really fun and interesting chart analysis to get into. So we are going to look at the chart of one of the most famous astrologers from back in the day, and a lot of you may know her. Her name is Isabel Hickey, and she was really notorious for being just such a gifted astrologer. She really wanted to help people. She really healed a lot of people, and I was listening to this interview with her, and she was essentially talking about the fact that, like, for her, doing astrology was really healing work as well too, right? It wasn't just prediction. It was also really about helping people heal and get to a place of improvement. And yeah, she was really a healer as well as an astrologer, and she was also a really well-known author. So she wrote really amazing books as well too, which we're going to see in the chart, of course. And the reason I want to look into her chart for analysis is there's something very specific in her chart, which I'm going to teach you guys a lesson of chart analysis that can be simple but can give us so much information, which is going to be the foundational aspects of the chart. So the foundations of every chart is going to be the ascendant, the sun, and the moon, right? So wherever the ascendant ruler goes, wherever the sun sits, and wherever the moon sits is going to give us so much information about where someone is pulled in this lifetime. And I think her chart is such a perfect example of this because her sun, her moon, her ascendant ruler all pushes towards a spiritual life and like a spiritual life path, essentially, right? So we're going to look into this. We're going to unravel Isabel Hickey's Vedic sidereal astrological chart, which I also love looking at Western astrologers' charts and then pulling up the Vedic sidereal chart just because I think it's really fascinating, right? It's like really interesting to me because we're going to get the same, we're going to get to the same place. It's just going to be a different level of information that we can access, right? So always really fun. And I feel like this video is going to be really informative. And I really like the idea of the foundational aspects of the charts, right? I'm going to show you guys, we're going to get into it, but it's really potent, it's really powerful, it's really accurate, but it's also very simplistic as well too. Okay? All right, so here we have Isabel Hickey's Vedic sidereal astrological chart. It feels so funny to be like pulling up a Western astrologer's Vedic astrology chart. I think it's so cool. Okay. So let us start with the foundational aspects of the chart, the ascendant, the sun, and the moon. So for Isabel Hickey, her ascendant is Scorpio, right? Scorpio is the first house, which is the lagna or the ascendant in Vedic astrology. So I'm going to show y'all what I am talking about. So first of all, in her chart, we get Uranus right in the first house. Now, yes, I do Vedic astrology, but yes, I use outer planets. It just works. It just does. That's the way I was trained. I love outer planets. I think they're very accurate. And especially for this chart, they're very accurate, which we'll get into. So yes, I do use outer planets. I get that question a lot. Okay, so Uranus is right on the ascendant. Now, Uranus is quite literally connected to astrology. Okay, so Uranus is the astrological outer planet, and it's right on her ascendant, and she's an astrologer, right? The foundation, the first house is Scorpio, which is already a sign that likes to go deep, and it's very psychological, and it's very much connected to moksha and spirituality. And then we get Uranus right on the first house, which is giving this interest in all things astrological, all things different, all things out there. Uranus is a very sort of out there, eccentric sort of energy, and it also can connect to technology. So Uranus can also show someone has some like interesting connection to new forms of technology as well too. But it is the astrological outer planet. Yes, it is. It's right there on the ascendant, right? So that's already like one aspect of the ascendant or the first foundation of the chart. But What I was really getting to is the first ruler. So wherever the ascendant ruler goes, that house becomes a huge theme of someone's life, right? So she's a Scorpio Lagna or ascendant, which means her first ruler goes into the 12th house. Okay. And the 12th house is moksha house. All things spiritual, all things deep, all things beyond the surface, right? So her first ruler is in a moksha house of spirituality. Okay. The 12th house connects to film, photography, television, and she was known through press. There's a lot of like interviews of her, right? So there is that connection as well too. Also, 12th house is foreign lands, different cultures. So she was also connecting with people from all over the world, right? It wasn't just about like local clients. She had a huge range of different clients from different parts of the world. That's also the 12th house as well too. The 12th house is that very spiritual, metaphysical sort of house, right? Uranus is in the first, astrology, unconventional things, astrology. First ruler is in the 12th house, moksha house, spirituality, different cultures, different lands, film, photography, raising consciousness. They say the 12th house is the house of like raising consciousness, trying to elevate humanity to some degree. Okay. So that's an aspect of the first foundational part of her chart, right? The ascendant. There it is. Okay. Now let's move to the next foundational aspect, which is the sun. So remember, the foundational aspects of the chart is the ascendant, the sun, and the moon. Okay. So we move over to her sun, which is in Leo, which means she has a powerful sun, right? The sun loves to be in Leo. It really thrives there. And it's in the 10th house. So the next foundational aspect of the chart shows that she would be very interested in career and having this large career, right? Having this pretty big, prominent career. And her sun happens to be really, really strong in Leo. So she's going to have that career success, right? So do you see what we're doing? It's like, okay, the first house is in the 12th house. It's a spiritual life. It's about moksha. It's about raising consciousness. It's about different cultures. It's about foreign lands. It's about film and photography and television. The next foundational aspect is in the 10th house. So her sun is like emulating energy into the 10th of career. So yes, it's a spiritual lifetime, but also she's going to have a really prominent career. And her career is going to be really, really important, as well as her public image, right? Which is true. She had this like very successful, widely known career. So many people know who she is. She's a very famous, well-known astrologer. Okay. And her sun is strong in that 10th house. Okay. So that's the next foundational aspect of the chart. Now, the next foundational aspect, which I'm curious if you guys know where this is going, is the moon, right? So the moon is in her 8th house. Isn't that fascinating? The 8th house is the house of astrology, right? So moon in the 8th means that she is very psychic, very intuitive. 8th house is a moksha house again, right? So her first ruler is in a moksha house. Her moon is in a moksha house. It's a lot of moksha, spiritual energy, okay? And her moon is also right near Neptune, okay? And Neptune is all things out there, mystical, spiritual, psychic. And interestingly enough, I also have moon conjunct Neptune in my 8th house, and I am a professional astrologer, right? There's going to be themes that are happening. Okay. So moon's in the 8th house, moksha house, astrological house, house of psychics and people who are connected to all things esoteric. The 8th house is also a house that loves research, diving deep into things. And to me, astrology is more of a research field than anything else. Like, you're constantly doing research with astrology. You're constantly sitting down and studying things. You're constantly sifting through information. It's really about research more than anything else. Yes, it's like a spiritual modality in certain ways, and it's like a spiritual science, right? But more than anything, you're constantly learning, you're doing research, you're sitting down, you're researching a chart. It's a lot of research and information with astrology. Okay, so her moon's in the 8th house. She loves to research. She loves all things spiritual, esoteric. She's very psychic with moon conjunct Neptune in the 8th house. Very psychic, very intuitive, has an ability to go into the other realms, as they would say. Very sensitive. And that's her whole life, right? So do you guys see what I'm doing? Like, we're looking at the ascendant, then we're looking at the sun, and then we're looking at the moon, and I could give like this little reading based on that, and that's so much of her life story. You know, she had the big career, she had the success, she was an astrologer, she was psychic, she was trying to raise consciousness, she was trying to heal people, she was connecting with people all over the world, different cultures, different lands, you know, like that, right? And so it's these very like simplistic aspects of the foundational parts of the chart, but it gives us so much information onto her life story. Okay? So that's really, really powerful. All right, so let's do a little bit more of a deep dive into Isabel Hickey's chart. I mean, I really wanted to show y'all like that technique, right? Obviously, in Vedic astrology, you don't ever just want to do that and then be like, all right, I'm done. That's it. No, you have to go to every single house of the chart and do an in-depth analysis, how each house is performing, the aspects on the houses, the house rulership, etc. But I'm just showing you guys how we can get a good base level of information from the foundational aspects of the chart. Okay? So don't get that twisted. I'm not saying just do that and then you're done. No. Okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper into Isabel Hickey's Vedic astrological chart. Scorpio ascendant, Uranus is there. She's an astrologer. First ruler is in the 12th house. She's connected to foreign lands. She's connecting with film and television, and she's psychic, and she's raising consciousness, and it's a moksha sort of lifetime, right? Now, what I find very interesting is her 10th house of career. Okay, let's unravel this. So, Sun is in Leo in its own sign, and it's conjunct Mercury, right? Now, what's really, really important in this chart is the aspects, actually. Okay, do we have a strong Sun conjunct Mercury in the 10th house? Yes, but it's hit by Jupiter as well, too. Okay, so the reason that's important is because, you know, Sun's in the 10th. Okay, what do we predict? She's going to work for herself. She's going to have her own business. She's going to be an entrepreneur. She's going to be working in her own field. Check, 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 check. Yes. You know, she's going to be somewhat of a leader in her field. Yes. It's with Mercury. Mercury is writing, communication, teaching, education. She was teaching a lot of people about astrology. She was writing books. She would write articles. Check, check, check. But we need to really look at that aspect of Jupiter, because Jupiter is guidance, spirituality, faith, teacher, guru, and now that's directly on her 10th house, right? So she had her own business. She worked for herself. She was a leader. She was a teacher. She was a writer. She was an author. And Jupiter is now bringing that spiritual influence as well too. Okay, so it's all of it. It's all of it. And if you miss the aspects onto houses, you miss like a great deal of information, right? So that's really important as well too. Okay, and a strong Sun in its own sign in the 10th house is always going to do so well for that house, right? So if someone has Sun in Leo in the 4th house, they can do great with property, real estate. Someone has Sun in Leo in the 2nd house, they can do really well with money, finances, etc. Sun in Leo in the 10th house, they can do very well with career success, big career. And then we get it with Mercury. Mercury is a benefic. It's hit by Jupiter. Jupiter is a great benefic. We have 2 benefic influences onto the 10th house of career. And then we have a planet in its own sign in the 10th house of career. right? That's a powerful career. Okay, let me tell you, that's a powerful career. So that's really important in this chart. Okay, and the reason that's really important is because there's charts where someone is spiritual and astrological and they're drawn to psychic and moksha, but it doesn't mean they're going to have a big successful career doing it. That's a different sort of analysis, and this is a chart where it happens to be both. It happens to be very spiritual, very astrological, very psychic, and then we have this powerhouse of a 10th house, and so she has a big career doing it, best believe it. So that's really powerful. Okay, and that Jupiter aspect brings so much information onto that 10th house of career. It adds a lot that is really important there. Okay, so moving on to, let's see, the moon, right? So she has the moon-Neptune conjunction in the 8th house. So when moon goes with outer planets, the way that I see it is it does take on some influence of that outer planet's energy. So if the moon is with Uranus, someone has out-of-the-box, unconventional sort of ideas, unconventional emotions. The moon is the emotional nature. If the moon is with Neptune, they have psychic, intuitive thought forms, right? They just tap in with things very easily. I actually have a video about the moon-Neptune conjunction. I have the moon-Neptune conjunction personally in my 8th house. So yes, I have an exact placement of a fellow astrologer. Yes, I do. And I have a whole video about moon conjunct Neptune, but basically we're like open channels for everything to come through. And if you don't really know what's going on and you're younger and you have like a moon Neptune conjunction, especially if it's in a moksha house, like it's in the 8th house or the 12th house, you feel a little crazy. You feel a little crazy because you're picking up on all these different things, right? You walk into a room and you're like, ooh, I feel heavy energy, and then you find out someone like just got in a fight, or it's like a haunted house, or it's like that with Moon Neptune. We're always tuning in with all these different frequencies, so it's a very psychic, sensitive conjunction, Moon Neptune, 100%. And so the moon is taking on the energy of Neptune, right? So her mind is very Neptunian. She's in touch with the psychic. The other side, it can be very healing, very sensitive, very in tune with everything. And then it's in the 8th house, which is the astrological house. So she's using her intuition, her insights, her psychic abilities in her astrology, because the 8th house is the astrological house. Okay. And she would also have some blessing with other people's money. That a lot with benefics in the 8th house. Like, people might just randomly give her money. She's going to have some good energy there, because also Jupiter aspects her moon by its 5th trine aspect, right? So Jupiter is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Jupiter is now hitting the moon in the 8th house. Oh my goodness, what a powerful 8th house now. Because essentially the 8th house is all things psychic, all things occult, all things astrological, other people's money. The moon, a great benefic, is there. It's hit by Jupiter, another great benefic, and the 8th house ruler is next to a planet in its own sign, hit by Jupiter again. Okay. My goodness. If she wasn't an astrologer, what would she be doing? So, really fascinating. And it's really important to look at those aspects. Very important, actually. Okay. All right, so moon, great benefic in the 8th, hit by Jupiter, another great benefic in the 8th house. Also, Jupiter-moon aspects give someone a really great mind for philosophy, spirituality, optimism, faith. Whenever Jupiter aspects personal planets in the chart, it's my favorite thing to see. And I remember my second Vedic teacher, James, who I always talk about, you guys know, he would say if there's one astrological signature in the chart that he would want it would be Jupiter conjunct or aspecting the moon. And it's just such a good aspect because the moon is the mind, right? It's the mental. And Jupiter's optimism, it's faith, it's hope, so the mind becomes very optimistic. They become lucky, they're protected, they're spiritually protected, very, very spiritually protected. If you ever see Jupiter with the moon or Jupiter on the ascendant or with the ascendant ruler, a lot of spiritual protection. They can find themselves in like a bind or a situation and they're always lucky, they always are good. That's that power of like Jupiter. So Jupiter's on the moon, the mind is expansive, it's philosophical, it's spiritual, it's happy, she wants to help people and be optimistic and hopeful, like that, right? And again, it's good for other people's money. So she would definitely have instances where people just give her money, give her extra money. It's coming in from weird outside sources. Absolutely. Okay. So the 8th ruler, I want to get back to this. So 8th house is Gemini, right? Ruled by Mercury. If the analysis wasn't already enough of how we see like a professional astrologer in the charts, now we have the 8th house ruler in the 10th house. Yes, we do. So the 8th house is astrology. The 8th house is the occult. It's moksha. It's all things spiritual, astrological, the depths. It's research. It's other people's money. And now the 8th house is bringing its energy into the 10th house of career and public image. So now her career, her public image gets a astrological influence, right? 8th ruler is in the 10th house. Okay, and the 8th ruler, which is Mercury, near Sun in its own sign. So now the 8th ruler is actually strong because it's near the Sun in its own sign and it's aspected by Jupiter, the great benefic, right? So now the 8th house, it's powerful, it's strong, and it's connected to the career and the public image. So now we get that 8th house influence in the 10th house, okay? So astrological career. That's really, really powerful. All right, and this is such a potent 10th house. When I look at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, pretty wild. Like the 10th ruler is in the 10th house, right? Whenever that happens for a certain house, that house becomes powerful, unless it's hit by like tons of malefics. But for the most part, a sign in its own planet, in its own sign, or exalted is really good for the meanings of that house, especially if it's hit by two benefics, right? Mercury and Jupiter. She also has, so this is interesting, she also has a really strong Saturn in her 3rd house. So she has a strong Sun, she has a strong Saturn. And what's interesting about that is a strong Saturn is actually really great for astrology, is what I find, because Saturn will give someone like the discipline to be able to really do their studies, dedicate themselves to their studies. And Saturn is like that sort of spiritual wisdom that's more practical, more grounded. They're really good at helping people in more practical or pragmatic ways. So she has a strong Sun, she has a strong Saturn, so that's really great as well too. And her Venus is debilitated in Virgo. But the thing about it is it's next to Rahu in Virgo. And Rahu and Ketu do best in Virgo. Okay. No, that's not something you read in ancient texts, but that's what I learned from my amazing Vedic teacher. And you really find it to work. Okay. So her Venus is near strong Rahu. And it's in the 11th house, which is a positive house. So I wouldn't worry that much about her Venus. Is she going to be a little bit more practical or pragmatic at times in matters of love and art and creativity? Sure. But I would not worry that much about that debilitated Venus. Okay. So actually that Rahu Venus in the 11th of Virgo could be pretty powerful, and the 11th Lord is in the 10th house, which would show that her work and career is also connected to groups, communities, connections. So she would work with like groups of people, and she would do these seminars and these classes where she was working with groups of people. quite literally. So 11th ruler in the 10th house. Okay, and Rahu with Venus, she would have some creative interest. She would have some interest in beauty and art, and she would have this very creative side of her. So that's there as well too. And what I find interesting as well is she does have Saturn, it's strong, it's retrograde, and then Jupiter is retrograde as well too. So to me, like retrograde planets would show that she comes into herself a little bit later on in life, right? So this is a really powerful chart, but we would also predict like the real success really coming into herself happens a little bit later. And I also find that when planets are retrograde, someone becomes more introspective. They need a lot of time to reflect and introspect. And usually they do things a couple times. So like you'll also find with retrograde planets, someone might need to do something more than once and then they get more of that success with it. But also I've talked about this before, the rulers, so like the house that a retrograde planet rules is going to be something that's more of a choice for that person. It might happen a little bit more slowly later on in life, like that. And actually, I haven't really like come up with a thesis on this quite yet, but I do find a lot of very spiritual charts happen to have retrograde planets, and I think there's a few sort of like theories that I'm forming about it. The first one is because it's more introspective, it's more internal, so people have a lot of energy to like reflect and think about things and go into their own world, which usually leads to a more spiritual sort of person. But also I think the retrograde planets show that someone has a lot of karma at times that they're working through, and it's almost like a do-over sort of lifetime. When someone has a lot of retrograde energy, they feel like they've come here to master some sort of specific lesson, or they're doing something again, they want to get it right this time, themes like that. So I don't fully have my theory formed yet, like I need to sit with that one a little bit more, but I do find very spiritual charts happen to have a lot of retrograde planets, actually. So that's really fascinating. All right, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I feel is important. Oh, I'm pretty sure. Okay, wait, let's pull this up because I think in her D10, which is her career chart, she has a Ketu influence in her 10th house, which is astrology and metaphysics. So let's see. Pull up the D10. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. You should be able to. Okay, so here's the D10 chart. Here's the 10th house, okay? So, 10th house, we get Ketu conjunct Mercury. It's like, how much more specific can we get? So, Ketu is spiritual career, strange career, fated career. You'll find a lot of the times when someone has Ketu in the 10th house, in the D1 or the D10, which is actually that literal career chart. Their career is something that they feel kind of fated about. Like they feel like, oh, I just kind of had to do this. Like this just kind of happened, right? Ketu is also spiritual career, astrological career, or it can be film, photography, television. Okay. And then it's conjunct Mercury. So Ketu, spiritual, astrological, strange, past life gifts with the career, fated, change careers. Usually people with Ketu in the 10th house will change their career like once or twice or more. They're like always trying to figure out what's the right career for them. And then it's with Mercury, which is writing, teaching, education, expression. So she wrote spiritual books. She channeled spiritual astrological information. And then it's near Uranus, which is quite literally the astrological outer planet. How much more literal can we get here? It's pretty wild. And then her 10th ruler is in the 9th house, which can be philosophical, different cultures, bringing in like information from outside places as well too. Okay. So that's pretty darn literal. All right. Oh, and then I find this really interesting as well too. Her Atmakarika, or her highest degree planet, is actually Jupiter, which Jupiter is the planet of spirituality, growth, expansion, teaching, guru, guide, wisdom. There it is, right? So super fascinating chart. I think it is so cool to see how she lived out her exact purpose in this lifetime, which I love to see. That's my favorite thing to see in charts, when I'm like, oh, they did the exact thing. Where you're like, they are living it to a scary degree. Where it's like, how are you living the exact thing that the chart is showing? Really fascinating, and I thought this was going to be such a great lesson in chart analysis. And she really did everything the chart is showing, right? Astrology, teaching, she was a leader in her field, she was really powerful in her work life, she left a legacy, strong sun in the 10th house, conjunct Mercury, she was a teacher, she wrote books, she did workshops, she did it all, right? She really did all the things that the chart was lending itself to. What I find interesting, last little thing, is with Ketu in the 5th house, I do wonder if she had one kid, maybe like she only had one child, or like for her, there weren't a lot of children. I actually don't know, so maybe someone can comment down below if you guys know, but I would be curious about that, and I feel like if she did have a child, they'd probably be pretty spiritual as well too, with Ketu in the 5th, and then the 5th ruler is retrograde. Okay. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment down below what you thought of this chart analysis and what you learned, what you found fascinating, what you're curious to learn more about. And I just think she was such a great example of using astrology as a healing modality, right? Not using it as this like doom and gloom and fatalistic sort of thing. She was really using it to try to help people. When I was listening to some of these interviews with her, and she was like, yeah, if someone came to me and they didn't have money, like I would still read their chart because I was working with God essentially. And so she was like, this is something I have to do to help this person out, and it would really change people's lives. And it's just really beautiful because astrology is the medium. It's the medium that is being used, but the intention is to help people, is to heal people. And that's what astrology is here for. It's not to describe someone's personality. It's to actually help people move through things and move through difficult time periods and help them understand why they're here and help them get back on their path. That's really, at least that's how I see astrological analysis. It's more so like a healing modality more than anything else. So she was really a great example of that. And she did it. She really did the thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment, like, and subscribe for so much more content coming soon. And if you want me to do this with your personal astrological charts, you can always book a reading down below. And I've added a new session where it's going to be the 2026, which is wild to say. Personal predictions based on your chart, so you guys should absolutely check that out. I feel like it's so helpful to get the astrological map or landscape of what to expect from a year. And I'm sending all the love, all the best vibes, and we'll talk soon. Bye guys.